Chapter 1. The Night the Vows Died. The storm arrived over Seattle just before sunset, swallowing the skyline in dark clouds and cold rain. Inside the 43rd floor office of Voss Dynamic Systems, Claire Voss stood at the glass windows overlooking the city she practically owned. For 22 years, Claire and Ethan Voss had been considered untouchable, the golden couple of the tech world. Billion-dollar interviews, magazine covers, charity galas, investors who worship them like royalty. But empires rarely collapse all at once. Usually they rot quietly from the inside. Ethan sat across from Claire's desk looking exhausted. His once athletic frame had thinned noticeably over the past year, and the dark circles beneath his eyes made him look 20 years older than he was. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the divorce papers lying between them. Claire watched him without emotion. "You filed already," Ethan said quietly. "You knew I would. 22 years. Claire gave the faintest shrug. 22 years is longer than most contracts survive. Ethan let out a dry laugh that turned into a violent coughing fit. He reached for a glass of water, steadying himself against the edge of the chair until the coughing passed. Claire's attorney, Miles Davenport, remained near the office door, pretending not to notice the tension filling the room. Ethan wiped his mouth slowly. "You leaked it to the press before telling the girls." The announcement needed controlling. "They're our daughters, Claire." "No," she replied coldly. "They're adults now. They'll survive disappointment." Ethan stared at her for several long seconds. Once that stare had contained love, admiration, desire. Now it contained fear. "You've become something I don't recognize." Claire smiled faintly. "That happened years ago. You just noticed too late." Ethan pushed the papers aside. "You were cutting them out too." Claire said nothing. That silence answered everything. "You are leaving Lila and Nora with nothing. I am protecting my company. They're your children. And children become liabilities when money gets involved." Ethan looked physically ill now. His skin had turned pale beneath the office lighting. "You really think none of this will come back on you?" Claire stepped closer to him. "I think weak men mistake consequences for injustice." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You've been poisoning me." Miles shifted uncomfortably near the doorway. Claire didn't blink. "You've been drinking too much. I know what's happening to me." "You are paranoid." "No," Ethan whispered. "I am dying." For the first time that evening, something flickered behind Claire's eyes. Not guilt, annoyance. "You should go home and rest." Ethan stood slowly, gripping the desk for balance. "If anything happens to me, the girls will know." Claire's expression hardened slightly. "Will they?" The question followed Ethan all the way home through the storm. The Voss estate sat above the cliffs north of the city, a massive structure of steel, marble, and glass overlooking the black ocean below. Every room inside the mansion felt expensive and cold, as though warmth itself had been designed out of the architecture. Lila Voss was live streaming to nearly 2 million followers when her father entered the house. "Guys, tonight's skincare routine is literally saving my life." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw him. Even through layers of makeup and camera filters, concern immediately crossed her face. "Dad?" Ethan forced a smile. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt." Her viewers flooded the comments instantly. "OMG, he looks sick. Is that Ethan Voss? He looks terrible." Lila ended the stream without another word. "What happened to you? Long day. You look awful." "Thanks." But she didn't laugh. Lila had always been closest to Ethan. While Claire built corporations and attended conferences across the world, Ethan attended dance recitals, school plays, and late-night panic attacks after breakups. He remembered birthdays, favorite songs, tiny details. Claire remembered quarterly projections. Nora sat quietly near the grand piano in the adjacent room, reading sheet music beneath the dim lights. Unlike her sister, Nora avoided cameras whenever possible. Her world consisted of music, isolation, and silence. She looked up when Ethan entered. For a brief moment, genuine concern crossed her face too. Then something stranger replaced it. "Guilt. You shouldn't be standing," Nora said softly. Lila frowned immediately. "What does that mean?" Nora looked away too quickly. "Nothing." Dinner that night became unbearable almost immediately. Rain hammered against the windows while thunder rolled across the coastline outside. Claire arrived late to the table wearing a black silk blouse, and the same unreadable expression she carried into every room. No one spoke for nearly a minute. Finally, Lila broke the silence. So TMZ already has the divorce story. Claire calmly poured wine into her glass. Yes, you embarrassed Dad publicly before even telling us. It would have leaked regardless. That's not the point. Claire took a sip of wine, then enlightened me. The point is maybe normal human beings don't destroy their family like it's a press release. Claire's eyes drifted toward Ethan. Your father and I stopped being a family years ago. Ethan stared down at his untouched food. Nora watched quietly from the far side of the table. Lila noticed something strange then. Claire poured wine for everyone personally, but when she reached Ethan's glass, she hesitated slightly before pouring. A tiny pause, barely noticeable. Except Nora noticed too. Their eyes met briefly across the table, and Nora looked frightened. Ethan lifted the glass toward his lips. Don't, Nora blurted suddenly. Everyone turned toward her. Silence swallowed the room. Claire's voice became dangerously calm. Excuse me, Nora swallowed hard. I just mean, maybe Dad shouldn't drink tonight. Ethan gave a weak smile. Probably good advice. But Claire continued staring at Nora. Not angry, studying her, as though measuring whether Nora had become a problem. Lila felt tension coil invisibly around the table. Then Ethan suddenly doubled over, coughing violently. The wine glass shattered against the floor. Lila jumped to her feet. Dad. Ethan gripped the table edge as his entire body shook. Claire remained seated. Ethan, she said coolly, you are making a scene. Call an ambulance, Lila snapped. No hospitals, Ethan whispered hoarsely. Dad, no hospitals. Claire finally stood. Help him upstairs. Lila stared at her in disbelief. That's it? What exactly would you like me to do? Panic theatrically? Lila had never hated her mother more than she did in that moment. Together, she and Nora helped Ethan upstairs. As they reached the second-floor hallway, Ethan suddenly gripped Nora's wrist tightly. His voice dropped to a whisper. Did you tell her? Nora looked horrified. Number, you promised. I know. Lila turned immediately. Tell her what? But Ethan released Nora and forced himself toward his bedroom before either daughter could stop him. Nora disappeared into her own room seconds later. And just like that, the family fractured into silence. Near midnight, Ethan sat alone in his private study at the far end of the mansion. The storm outside had grown violent now, waves crashing against the cliffs below the estate with enough force to shake the windows. He placed a small recorder onto the desk. For several seconds, he simply stared at it. Then he pressed record. If you are hearing this, he began weakly, then I probably ran out of time. His breathing sounded uneven. I tried documenting everything. The medications, the symptoms, the dizziness after meals. Claire thinks I am too confused to notice patterns now. He coughed harshly into a handkerchief, but she underestimated me. Ethan opened a nearby drawer and removed a flash drive. Someone needs to know the truth about what she's done. A floorboard creaked faintly outside the study. Ethan froze. Slow footsteps approached the door, then a soft knock. Dad, Nora. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. 1 minute. She's asking where you are. Ethan quickly hid the flash drive beneath the desk. I'll be there soon. Nora hesitated outside the door. Then her voice lowered almost to a whisper. You shouldn't fight her anymore. Something cold moved through Ethan's face. You don't understand what she's capable of. A long silence followed. Then Nora spoke words that would haunt the family forever. I understand more than you think. Hours later, Ethan Voss was dead. Lila woke to screaming. For several confused seconds, she thought the storm itself had entered the house. Then she realized the sound came from downstairs. She ran toward the study barefoot. Police officers already filled the hallway by the time she arrived. And through the partially open doorway, she saw her father's body slumped beside the desk. A gun rested near his hand. Blood stained the side of his head. Lila stopped breathing. Number. One of the officers tried blocking her path, but she shoved past him. No, 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 no. Her knees nearly gave out. Ethan's eyes remained half open, frozen in a final expression that looked less like despair and more like shock. Claire stood near the window, speaking calmly with detectives. Calmly, as though discussing business negotiations instead of her husband's death. Lila turned toward her in disbelief. How are you not crying? Claire's gaze barely shifted. Because someone in this family needs composure. He didn't kill himself. The gun was in his hand. He was scared. He was unstable. Lila felt rage boiling through her grief now. "You did this." The room went silent. Even the detectives stopped moving. Claire slowly approached her daughter. "Be very careful what accusations you make next." Lila held her ground. "You hated him. Hate is not murder." "Then why does this feel staged?" Something flickered behind Claire's eyes then. Not fear. Interest. As though she were seeing Lila clearly for the first time. Before Claire could respond, another voice interrupted quietly from the doorway. "She's right." Everyone turned. Nora stood pale and trembling near the hall entrance. The glass was wrong. One detective frowned. "What?" Nora stared toward Ethan's desk, the whiskey glass beside him. The detective glanced back into the room. "What about it?" Nora swallowed hard. It was clean. Silence filled the study. Lila looked sharply toward her sister. And for one terrifying moment, Nora looked as though she regretted speaking at all. The funeral arrangements began almost immediately. By afternoon, the house had transformed into a fortress of lawyers, executives, reporters, and security personnel. Ethan's death had become international news. But sometime near evening, a woman arrived at the estate unannounced, Camille Laurent. Lila found her standing alone in the memorial room staring at Ethan's portrait. She was elegant, composed, beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. "You knew him," Lila said quietly. Camille turned slowly. "Yes? How?" A pause. Then the truth. "I loved him." The words hit Lila like ice water. "You are lying." Lila stared at her father's portrait. "How long?" 3 years. Something inside Lila cracked further. Not because Ethan had betrayed Claire, but because he'd been desperate enough to seek tenderness somewhere else. Camille stepped closer. "Your father believed he was being poisoned." Lila's heart stopped. Camille removed a small leather notebook from her purse and handed it to her. Inside were pages of handwritten dates, symptoms, medications, and chemical names, arsenic, repeated over months. Lila looked up slowly. "He kept records?" "Yes." "Why give this to me?" Camille's expression darkened slightly. "Because your sister already knows." Cold fear crept down Lila's spine. "What does that mean?" But before Camille could answer, voices approached down the hallway. "Claire!" Camille immediately stepped backward toward the shadows. "Do not trust appearances inside this house," she whispered. Then she disappeared. Later that night, unable to sleep, Lila searched through her father's deleted voicemail archive. Most files were corrupted, broken fragments, static, but one recording partially recovered. Her father's exhausted voice emerged through interference. "Lila, if anything happens to me, Claire knows. The girls aren't safe." The audio crackled violently. Then another voice appeared faintly in the background. Nora's voice. "Dad, please, just drink it." Lila froze. The recording ended abruptly. And downstairs, somewhere deep within the dark mansion, a piano began playing softly in the middle of the night. Chapter 2. The Poison Ledger. The funeral of Ethan Voss became a global spectacle before the flowers even arrived. News drones hovered above the cemetery gates. Financial analysts dissected Claire Voss's expression on cable television as if grief could be measured through stock market language. Influencers posted black and white edits of Ethan smiling beside his daughters, while sad piano music played beneath captions about tragedy and legacy. And through it all, Claire never cried. Lila noticed that first, not during the funeral, not during the speeches, not even when Ethan's casket disappeared beneath the polished marble crypt overlooking the ocean cliffs. Claire stood motionless beside the grave like a CEO attending a quarterly earnings call. Cold, efficient, untouchable. Lila wore dark sunglasses even though the sky was covered in rain clouds. She told herself it was to protect her makeup from smearing. In truth, she didn't want anyone seeing how terrified she was becoming, because the voicemail hadn't left her mind. "Dad, please, just drink it." Nora's voice. At first, Lila tried convincing herself it had to be distorted audio, corrupted files, artificial intelligence, some technological glitch, but deep down she knew. She knew her sister's voice the way twins always do. Nora stood several feet away beneath a black umbrella, pale and delicate in her funeral dress. her long dark hair blowing violently in the coastal wind. She looked fragile enough to shatter. And yet, when Lila watched her closely, she noticed something strange. Nora never looked at their father's grave, not once. Instead, her eyes kept drifting toward Camille Laurent, toward the woman Ethan had secretly loved. The realization crawled beneath Lila's skin like insects. Camille stood apart from the mourners near the far edge of the cemetery, dressed in black wool, elegant and unreadable. She had not approached Claire. Claire had not acknowledged her existence, but Nora kept watching her. Watching her the way starving people watch food. The priest's voice dissolved into the crashing ocean below the cliffs, as Lila's pulse began to pound harder. Something was deeply wrong inside this family. Something older than the funeral, older than the divorce, maybe older than Ethan's death itself. After the service, guests flooded the Voss estate for the reception. Politicians, investors, celebrities, and executives filled the mansion with artificial sympathy and expensive perfume. Lila escaped upstairs before she suffocated. Her father's study remained sealed by police tape, but that didn't stop her. Within minutes she was inside. The room still smelled faintly of gunpowder beneath the cedarwood and whiskey. Ethan's chair remained overturned exactly as it had been the morning they found him. Lila moved carefully toward the desk. Then she froze. Someone had already been there. Drawers stood slightly open, folders disturbed. The hidden compartment beneath the bookshelf no longer aligned correctly. Her stomach tightened. Someone else was searching. Quickly, she crouched beside the desk and reached underneath the bottom drawer until her fingers brushed against taped plastic. The flash drive, still there. Relief hit her so hard she nearly cried. Her father had shown it to her once years earlier during one of his paranoid late-night moods. "If I ever disappear," he'd joked. "This is where the monsters hide." At the time she thought he'd been drunk. Now she wasn't so sure. Lila slipped the drive into her pocket just as footsteps approached outside the study. She shut off the desk lamp instantly. The door creaked open. Nora entered slowly. For several long seconds neither sister spoke. Nora looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her fingers trembled slightly. "You shouldn't be in here," she whispered. Lila crossed her arms. "Funny, I was about to say the same thing." Nora glanced toward the desk. "You think Mom killed him. You don't." Nora hesitated too long. That was answer enough. Lila stepped closer. "I heard the voicemail." A flicker of panic crossed Nora's face before vanishing. "What voicemail?" "Dad asking for help. Your voice in the background." Nora's lips parted slightly. Then she looked away. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it." "I can't," Lila laughed bitterly. "You can't. Dad dies hours after Mom files divorce papers. He thinks he's being poisoned, and somehow your voice ends up on the last recording he ever made." Nora's eyes glistened. "You don't understand anything." "Then help me understand." But Nora only backed toward the doorway. Before leaving, she spoke so softly Lila barely heard her. "Stop digging before Mom notices." Then she disappeared into the hallway. Those words haunted Lila all night. Before Mom notices, not before the police notice. Not before the press notices, Mom. As if Claire Voss were something far more dangerous than law enforcement. The flash drive contained 27 files, medical reports, private recordings, photographs, bank transfers, and one folder labeled Ledger. Lila opened it. A spreadsheet appeared on screen listing dates, meals, medications, symptoms, and chemical compounds. Arsenic. Tiny doses repeated for months. Her blood ran cold. Ethan had known. Every dinner Claire prepared. Every glass of wine. Every sudden illness, he documented all of it. Lila scrolled further. Then she saw the final entry, June 14th. Severe tremors. Nora brought tea tonight instead of Claire. Felt guilty afterward. She knows something. Lila leaned back slowly. The room suddenly felt too small to breathe in. Nora knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Another file caught her attention. A video recording. Timestamped 2 weeks before Ethan's death. She pressed play. The image appeared shaky and dimly lit. Ethan sat alone inside his car, visibly weaker than she remembered. His hands trembled as he adjusted the camera. "If you are seeing this," he said hoarsely. Claire finally decided I am no longer useful. He coughed violently into a handkerchief. Here is something you need to know about Nora. Lila's pulse stopped, but before Ethan could continue, the driver's side window exploded inward. The recording ended abruptly. Lila stared at the frozen screen in horror. Someone had attacked him. Someone knew he was documenting everything. A floorboard creaked behind her. She spun around. Camille stood in the doorway. Neither woman spoke immediately. Camille's eyes drifted toward the laptop screen. You found the ledger. Lila shut the laptop halfway. How long were you standing there? Long enough? You knew about this. Yes, and you said nothing? Camille stepped inside carefully. Your father wanted proof before going public. He was terrified. Claire would destroy the girls if he accused her without evidence. Lila laughed bitterly. Well, she's doing a great job anyway. Camille studied her for a moment. You remind me of him. Don't. It's true. Lila looked away. The grief inside her had become something uglier now. Something sharp. He loved you? Camille nodded once. For 3 years. Did Mom know? I believe she suspected. And Nora? At that question, Camille stiffened almost imperceptibly. Yes, Lila noticed instantly. A terrible possibility flickered into existence. Nora's in love with you. Camille said nothing. Silence became confirmation. Lila felt sick. She's 19. I never encouraged it. But you knew. Camille closed her eyes briefly. She's emotionally fragile. No, Lila snapped. She's hiding something. Camille stepped closer. Listen to me carefully. Your mother is watching everyone in this house now. Ethan's death accelerated things. What things? But Camille hesitated. For the first time since meeting her, she looked genuinely afraid. She thinks someone has evidence? Lila touched the flash drive inside her pocket. Maybe someone does. Camille's eyes sharpened instantly. Before either could speak further, footsteps echoed downstairs. Claire's voice floated through the hallway. Lila, the temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. Camille moved toward the rear exit. Hide the drive, she whispered. Then she vanished. Seconds later, Claire appeared at the study door. Perfect posture, perfect makeup, perfect calm. Her eyes immediately scanned the room. Not emotionally, strategically. You've been in here a while. Lila forced herself to stay composed. I miss him. Claire nodded slowly. Your father made many mistakes. You mean like accusing you of poisoning him? Claire's face remained unreadable. Be careful what conspiracy theories you entertain. Lila stepped closer. Did you love him at all? Something cold flickered behind Claire's eyes. I loved the version of him that existed before weakness consumed him. That's not an answer. It's the only one you are getting. Claire turned toward the hallway, then paused. One more thing. Lila felt her heartbeat accelerate. The police found traces of sedatives in your father's bloodstream. Lila stared at her. Claire smiled faintly. He wasn't thinking clearly near the end. Then she walked away. The moment she disappeared, Lila's fear transformed into certainty. Claire knew about the investigation. Maybe she always had downstairs. The reception continued deep into the night. Wealthy strangers drank champagne beneath portraits of a dead man while violinists played soft classical music near the staircase. Nora sat alone at the grand piano. Her fingers drifted silently across the keys, though she barely pressed hard enough to create sound. Lila watched her from the balcony above, studied her. For the first time in her life, she realized she had absolutely no idea who her sister truly was. Not really. Twins were supposed to know each other better than anyone else. But Nora had become a locked room, and somewhere inside that room was the truth about Ethan's death. As guests slowly departed, Claire gathered the remaining family in the library. Only 4 people remained. Claire, Lila, Nora, Miles Davenport. Rain battered the windows while thunder rolled above the cliffs. Claire stood beside the fireplace holding several legal folders. I'll make this brief, she said calmly. The revised inheritance structure becomes effective immediately. Lila folded her arms. You wasted no time. The company requires stability. Miles handed each twin a document. Lila scanned the first page. Then her face drained of color. What is this? A behavioral morality clause, Claire replied. Nora looked confused. Claire continued. Any daughter found publicly damaging the Voss brand forfeits all financial interest in the estate. Lila looked up sharply. You are threatening us. I am protecting my company. You cut us out already? Claire's expression hardened. Then perhaps don't give me reasons to cut deeper. The silence that followed felt lethal. Then Nora spoke unexpectedly. Why are you doing this? Claire looked at her softly, almost lovingly. Because survival requires difficult decisions. For a split second, Lila noticed something unsettling. Nora seemed affected by that answer. Not frightened, comforted, as if Claire had spoken directly to her. Later that night, unable to sleep, Lila returned once more to Ethan's study. She replayed the corrupted voicemail repeatedly through audio software until the static slowly clarified. Dad, please, just drink it. Then Ethan's weak voice. Nora, no more tonight. Another pause. Then something new emerged beneath the distortion. A whisper. So faint it barely sounded human. Claire's voice. She already suspects us. Lila froze. Us. Not me. Us. The screen glowed against her horrified face while thunder shook the mansion outside. And somewhere down the hallway, a piano began playing softly in the dark. Chapter 3. The Girl Behind the Piano. The piano music started at exactly 2:13 a.m. in the morning. Lila lay frozen in bed listening to the melody drift upward through the mansion, like a ghost moving through walls, slow, precise, beautiful enough to make her skin crawl. Nora only played when she couldn't sleep. As children, their father used to joke that he could track Nora's emotions through the piano. Angry songs meant she'd fought with Claire. Soft songs meant heartbreak. Silence meant danger. Tonight's music sounded like mourning or confession. Lila stared at the recovered voicemail glowing on her phone screen while the same sentence repeated endlessly inside her head. Dad, please, just drink it. She could still hear Nora's voice clearly now. Not distorted, not imagined, real. Outside, rain lashed against the mansion windows while the ocean crashed violently below the cliffs. The entire house felt awake somehow, breathing around her in long, cold exhales. Lila slipped quietly into the hallway and followed the music downstairs. The grand piano sat near the east wing overlooking the sea. Moonlight filtered through towering windows, silver across the marble floor. Nora played alone beneath the darkness. Her fingers moved effortlessly across the keys while tears rolled silently down her face. For several moments, Lila simply watched her. Her sister looked fragile, broken, and somehow terrifying. You knew he was dying, Lila said finally. The music stopped instantly. Nora didn't turn around. I heard the voicemail again. Still silence. You told him to drink it. Nora's shoulders tightened slightly. It wasn't poison. Lila felt anger surge immediately. So now we're discussing dosage? Nora stood slowly from the piano bench. You don't understand what was happening. Then explain it. Nora turned toward her at last. Her eyes looked hollow from exhaustion. Dad was getting worse every week. He couldn't sleep. He was paranoid all the time, because Mom was poisoning him. You don't know that. I found his ledger. That hit Nora visibly. For the first time, genuine panic crossed her face. You shouldn't have touched his files. He documented arsenic poisoning for months. Nora looked away toward the ocean windows. You always think evidence means truth. What does that even mean? It means Dad wasn't innocent either. Lila stared at her. What are you talking about? But Nora shook her head. I can't do this tonight. Lila stepped closer. Yes, you can. Number. You owe him that much. At those words, something sharp flashed across Nora's expression. Owe him? She whispered bitterly. You think you knew him better than I did? He was our father. Nora laughed softly. A broken sound. You saw the version of him he wanted everyone else to see. Before Lila could respond, footsteps echoed from the upper hallway. Claire. Instantly, Nora wiped her tears away and sat back down at the piano. The transformation happened so fast it frightened Lila. Claire appeared moments later wearing a silk robe, perfectly composed despite the hour. Her eyes moved between both daughters carefully. Interesting time for family arguments. No argument, Nora said quietly. Claire studied Lila. You've been searching his office. Lila's pulse jumped. You spying on me now? I am protecting this family. You mean protecting yourself? Claire walked slowly toward the piano. You've inherited your father's talent for paranoia. And you inherited Satan's personality. Nora closed her eyes briefly. Claire smiled faintly. Grief makes people emotional. I'll overlook that. Lila folded her arms. Why did you rewrite the prenup? Because Ethan was reckless. You left us with nothing. No, Claire corrected calmly. I prevented him from destroying what I built. You really believe this company matters more than your family? Claire looked directly at her. Yes. The honesty stunned the room into silence. Even Nora looked shaken by it. Claire rested one hand lightly against the piano. Your father romanticized weakness. That was always his flaw. Lila's anger boiled hotter. You hated him. Hate requires emotional investment. Then Claire turned toward Nora. You should get some sleep. The softness in her voice toward Nora contrasted sharply with how she spoke to Lila. Lila noticed immediately, and suddenly memories began resurfacing. Claire attending Nora's piano recitals, but skipping Lila's events. Claire defending Nora after emotional breakdowns. Claire watching Nora with protective intensity that bordered on obsession. Something about their relationship felt uneven. Dangerously uneven. After Claire left, Nora whispered without looking up, You need to stop provoking her. Lila stared at her in disbelief. She murdered Dad. You don't know what she's capable of. There it is again. Nora's fingers trembled above the piano keys. What? You keep saying that. Nora finally looked at her, and for one horrifying second, Lila saw genuine fear in her sister's eyes. Not fear of being caught, fear of Claire. The next morning brought another wave of reporters outside the estate gates. Financial networks speculated about succession control of Voss Dynamic Systems, while entertainment media obsessed over Ethan's affair becoming public after anonymous leaks overnight. Someone had released photos of Camille Laurent entering hotels with Ethan. The internet exploded instantly. Claire remained calm through all of it. Too calm. Lila watched from the kitchen as her mother reviewed stock reports beside untouched coffee. How are you functioning right now? Lila asked. Claire didn't look up. Functioning is what adults do. Dad died yesterday. Claire finally met her eyes, and collapsing won't bring him back. Lila hated how steady her mother sounded, like she'd already emotionally processed the death long ago. Miles Davenport entered moments later, carrying several folders. The board meeting has been moved to Friday, he said quietly. Claire nodded. And the girls? Miles hesitated briefly. There may be complications. Claire's expression hardened slightly, Lila noticed. What complications? Neither answered immediately. Then Miles carefully placed a document onto the counter. A trust amendment, signed by Ethan 3 weeks earlier. Lila scanned the first page, then froze. This leaves Dad's personal shares equally between me and Nora. Claire said nothing. But you said, I wasn't aware Ethan changed his private holdings before his death. Lila looked sharply at her. You are lying. Claire's jaw tightened almost invisibly. For the first time since Ethan died, she actually looked irritated, which meant this mattered a lot. Your father made emotional decisions near the end, Claire replied coldly. That's billions in shares. Yes, and you didn't know. Claire stepped closer slowly. Be careful assuming ignorance means weakness. Lila held her stare. Neither woman blinked. Across the room, Nora quietly watched both of them, like someone trapped between two fires. Later that afternoon, Camille secretly contacted Lila from a blocked number. Meet me alone. Your father hid something before he died. The message included an address, an abandoned music conservatory downtown. Lila almost ignored it, but curiosity won. The conservatory had been closed for years after water damage destroyed most of the building. Dust covered the lobby floors while faded concert posters peeled from the walls. Camille waited near the old auditorium stage. You came alone? Yes. Good. Lila crossed her arms immediately. You said Dad hid something. Camille nodded toward the piano sitting center. Stage beneath a sheet. He brought Nora here constantly when she was younger. Lila frowned. She studied here before the accident. What accident? Camille hesitated, then realized Lila truly didn't know. When Nora was 14, she attempted suicide. The words hit like a physical blow. What? Your father found her. Lila stared at her in shock. Nobody told me that. Claire buried it completely. Private hospitals, NDAs, therapy. Lila's chest tightened painfully. Why hadn't Nora ever told her? Camille walked slowly toward the piano. Afterward, Ethan became protective of her. Excessively protective. Lila followed cautiously. What does that have to do with his death? Camille lifted the piano cover. Beneath the strings rested a hidden envelope. Ethan's handwriting covered the front, for Lila only. Lila's pulse accelerated as she opened it. Inside sat photographs, dozens of them. Claire meeting privately with doctors. Claire purchasing unregistered compounds through shell companies. Claire entering Ethan's medication clinic under fake names. Then Lila found the final photograph and stopped breathing. It showed Nora standing beside Claire outside a pharmacy at midnight, both looking terrified. The timestamp was 3 months earlier. No, Lila whispered. Camille watched her carefully. Your father believed Nora became involved somehow. Lila looked up slowly. Involved how? He never knew. But you suspected. Camille didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked softly, have you noticed how afraid Nora is of your mother? Lila thought about the piano, the shaking hands, the constant warnings. Stop digging before Mom notices. Suddenly, the entire situation felt larger, more complicated. What if Nora wasn't helping Claire willingly? What if she was trapped? Lila looked again at the photograph. Nora's face looked devastated. Not evil, not manipulative, terrified. And for the first time since hearing the voicemail, doubt entered Lila's mind. Maybe her sister wasn't the villain. Maybe she was another victim. But back at the estate that evening, Nora stood alone inside Ethan's study, staring at the exact spot where his body had been found. Claire entered quietly behind her. You met with Camille again, Claire said. Nora's breathing tightened. She contacted Lila. I know. Nora turned slowly. What are you going to do? Claire stepped closer. Her voice remained perfectly calm. What I've always done. Nora's eyes filled instantly with fear. She's my sister. And Ethan was my husband. Claire reached up and gently brushed Nora's hair behind her ear almost maternally. You made your choice already. Nora looked seconds away from collapsing. Claire leaned closer. If Lila uncovers the truth, everything falls apart. Tears rolled silently down Nora's face. I never wanted him dead. Claire's expression finally changed. Not softer, colder. But you helped anyway. Chapter 4. The tape beneath the floorboards. Lila stopped sleeping after she found the photographs. Every hour inside the Voss estate now felt staged. Every conversation sounded rehearsed. Every glance between Claire and Nora carried hidden meaning. Worst of all was the uncertainty. One moment Lila believed Nora was another victim trapped beneath Claire's control. The next moment she remembered the voicemail. Dad, please, just drink it. No amount of fear explained that sentence away. By the third day after Ethan's death, the mansion had transformed into something unbearable. Security guards patrolled the grounds 24 hours a day. Claire held non-stop meetings with attorneys and board members, while financial reporters camped outside the gates waiting for the Voss empire to crack open, publicly. But Claire never cracked. She moved through every crisis with terrifying precision, like someone following a plan already written long ago. Lila watched her mother closely during breakfast that morning. Claire sat at the far end of the massive dining table reviewing acquisition reports while sipping black coffee. Not once did she acknowledge the television behind her playing coverage of Ethan's death. The anchor's voice echoed softly through the room. Questions continue surrounding billionaire Ethan Voss's apparent suicide as anonymous sources claim marital tensions had intensified in recent months. Claire muted the television without looking up. Media thrives on grief, she said calmly. Lila stared at her. You really don't care what people think, do you? Claire turned a page in the report. Public opinion is temporary. Ownership is permanent. Nora entered quietly moments later, looking exhausted. Her oversized sweater hung loosely from her thin frame, and her eyes remained fixed on the floor as she sat beside Claire. Claire immediately touched Nora's wrist, gently. You should eat something. The tenderness in her voice made Lila sick. Nora barely nodded. The entire interaction felt wrong somehow. Not maternal. Possessive. Lila noticed Nora subtly pulling her arm away. Claire noticed too. For one brief second, irritation flashed across her face before disappearing again beneath perfect control. You have rehearsal today, Claire said softly. I canceled. Why? Nora hesitated. I don't feel like playing. Claire's expression darkened almost imperceptibly. Music keeps you focused. I said. I canceled. Silence fell instantly. Lila watched carefully. Something dangerous had just passed between them. Claire stood slowly from the table. Excuse us. Nora looked pale. I am fine here. That wasn't a request. Claire walked toward the hallway without looking back. After several seconds, Nora followed. Lila waited exactly 10 seconds before going after them. Their voices drifted from Claire's private office near the west wing. The door remained slightly open. You are becoming emotional again, Claire said quietly. I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. He was my father, and he would have destroyed everything. Lila's pulse quickened. You promised nobody else would get hurt, Nora whispered. Claire's voice remained calm. Nobody else needs to. Lila pressed closer to the doorway. Then Claire spoke words that froze her blood completely. If Lila finds the tape, we lose control of everything. Tape, not files, not evidence, a tape. Nora sounded panicked now. She doesn't know where it is. She's smarter than Ethan ever realized. Lila stepped backward before either woman noticed her. A tape. Somewhere inside the mansion existed something powerful enough to frighten Claire Voss. And for the first time since Ethan's death, Lila saw real cracks forming in her mother's control. That afternoon, while Claire attended meetings downtown, Lila searched Ethan's study again. Every drawer, every shelf, every hidden compartment. Nothing. But then she remembered something Ethan once told her years earlier during renovations. The old house existed beneath the new one. The modern mansion had been built over the original cliffside estate after Claire bought the property. Certain sections of the old structure still remained sealed inside the walls and floors, including Ethan's study. Lila dropped to her knees beside the fireplace. Slowly, she knocked against the hardwood panels beneath the rug. Solid. 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 Then hollow. Her heart accelerated instantly. She pulled back the rug completely and found a thin seam between two floorboards. Using a fireplace tool, she pried upward carefully. The hidden compartment opened. Inside rested a small cassette recorder and 3 tapes. Lila stared at them in disbelief. Old-fashioned, untraceable. Exactly the kind of thing Ethan would use if he believed Claire monitored digital devices. Hands trembling, Lila inserted the first tape into the recorder. Static crackled briefly. Then Ethan's voice emerged. If you are hearing this, Claire finally moved sooner than I expected. Lila stopped breathing. I began recording these after the poisoning started. At first I thought stress was causing the symptoms. Then I noticed patterns. Paper rustled softly on the tape. She controls everything digitally. Phones, security, financial records. So I returned to something she wouldn't think to monitor. Another pause. If I am dead, assume she won. Lila's throat tightened painfully. The tape continued. Nora knows more than she admits. Lila closed her eyes briefly. I don't think she understands how dangerous Claire truly is. Claire manipulates weakness better than anyone I've ever known. Then Ethan's voice lowered. And T hears something else. Something about Nora I should have confronted years ago. The tape clicked suddenly. End of recording. Lila grabbed the second cassette immediately. This recording sounded different, more frantic. Storm sounds echoed faintly in the background. I followed Claire tonight. Heavy breathing. She met with Dr. Klein again. Same clinic, same compounds. A car door slammed somewhere on the recording. She's increasing the dosage. Lila felt sick. Then Ethan spoke words that changed everything. I confronted Nora afterward. She admitted Claire convinced her the medication was helping stabilize my moods. Lila froze. Medication, not poison. She thought she was protecting me from breakdowns. Lila leaned back slowly. Claire had manipulated Nora into helping. God, Nora truly believed she was helping him. But the tape continued. Then Nora told me something worse. Ethan's breathing grew uneven. She said Claire promised the company would belong to her someday. Not both girls, just Nora. Silence followed. Then Ethan whispered, she chose Claire. The tape ended. Lila sat motionless on the floor for nearly a minute. Everything felt twisted now. Nora wasn't simply frightened. She was compromised. Emotionally trapped between both parents. Manipulated, rewarded. Used, and may be willing to betray anyone to keep Claire's love. The realization devastated Lila more than the murder itself. Because beneath all the lies and fear, Nora still remained her twin. Later that evening, Nora entered the study and found the floor compartment open. Her face drained instantly. Lila stood beside the desk holding the cassette recorder. Neither sister spoke at first. Nora looked like someone approaching an execution. "You found them," she whispered. "Yes." Nora closed her eyes briefly. "I tried hiding them before Mom did." "You helped poison him." Tears formed instantly in Nora's eyes. "I didn't know." "He said you chose her." Nora flinched hard. Lila stepped closer. "Did you?" Nora's voice broke. "You don't understand what she's like when she focuses on you." "What does that mean?" Nora wiped tears angrily from her face. "She knows exactly what people need." Lila stared at her. "She made me feel safe. She made you help kill Dad. I thought she was helping him." The words exploded out of Nora so violently they startled both sisters. Nora collapsed into the chair beside the desk, shaking uncontrollably. "She told me he was unstable, that the medication kept him calm. She said his paranoia was getting dangerous." Lila's anger wavered slightly. "Nora." But Nora looked destroyed now. "You know what the worst part is," she whispered. "Part of me believed her because I wanted her approval." Silence swallowed the room. Lila suddenly remembered every moment Claire praised Nora growing up. Every performance, every achievement, every fragile emotional collapse, Claire swooped in to save. It had never been love. It was conditioning. "You need to go to the police," Lila said finally. Nora looked terrified instantly. "Numbers, she manipulated you. You don't understand. If Mom goes down, she destroys everyone with her. She already destroyed Dad." Nora's breathing became uneven. "You think this ends with prison? Mom owns judges, senators, entire companies. She buries people." Lila grabbed the tapes tightly. "Not this time." Nora stared at her with genuine horror. "You can't release those." "Why?" "Because here is another tape." The room went cold. Lila's pulse slowed. "What tape?" Nora looked seconds away from collapsing. "The last one." Fear entered her voice completely now. "You weren't supposed to find it." Lila stepped closer. "What's on it?" Nora began crying silently. Then she whispered the words that shattered everything. "The recording of the night Dad died." Chapter 5. The Last Recording. The storm returned the night Nora confessed the final tape existed. Rain hammered the windows hard enough to sound like fists against the glass while thunder rolled endlessly above the cliffs. The Voss estate seemed to shrink inward beneath the weight of what now lived inside it. Lila stared at her sister across Ethan's study. "The tape," she whispered. "Where is it?" Nora shook uncontrollably in the chair. "I tried to destroy it." "But you didn't." Nora looked toward the study door instinctively before lowering her voice. "Mom hid it after the police left." Lila's pulse pounded harder. "She kept it? She keeps everything." "Of course she did." Claire Voss never destroyed leverage. She archived it, cataloged it, weaponized it. Lila knelt beside her sister slowly. "For once in your life, stop protecting her." Nora's eyes filled with fresh tears. "You think I don't hate myself already? Then help me finish this." For several seconds, Nora looked trapped between terror and exhaustion. Then finally, "She has a private vault beneath the west wing." Lila frowned. Here is no basement there. There is if you know the elevator code." Lila stared at her. "How long have you known?" Nora laughed weakly through tears. "Long enough to realize Mom never trusted anyone. Not even me." Thunder shook the mansion again. Lila looked down at the tapes in her hands. Every answer they uncovered only revealed something worse beneath it. "How involved were you?" she asked quietly. Nora froze. The silence itself became terrifying. Lila's voice hardened. "Nora, I never wanted him dead. That's not what I asked." Nora finally looked at her, and for the first time since Ethan died, Lila saw the truth fully exposed inside her sister's face. Guilt. Real guilt. "I helped stage the suicide scene," Nora whispered. The room tilted. Lila stepped backward slowly. "Number. I thought Mom was going to call emergency services. I thought maybe he was still alive." "You touched the scene?" Nora nodded weakly. "She made me wipe the glass, the spotless whiskey tumbler. God, you helped cover it up." I know. Lila's entire body trembled now with rage and heartbreak. He was our father. Nora suddenly screamed back through tears. And she's our mother. Silence exploded between them afterward. Heavy, ugly, true. Nora collapsed forward, sobbing into her hands. You don't understand what she's like when she decides someone belongs to her, she whispered. She gets inside your head. She makes you feel chosen. Lila stared at her in horror. How long has she been controlling you? Nora didn't answer directly. Instead, she whispered, since the hospital. The suicide attempt, everything suddenly connected. Claire hadn't saved Nora after her breakdown years ago. She had isolated her, reshaped her, made herself indispensable. You need to tell the police everything. Nora's eyes widened immediately. You still don't understand. Mom already prepared for that. What does that mean? Nora looked toward the hallway again. She has evidence on everyone, judges, reporters, politicians. If she falls, she destroys entire lives with her. Lila's voice turned cold. Good. Before Nora could answer, footsteps echoed somewhere upstairs. Both sisters froze instantly. Claire. Even from a distance, they somehow knew. Nora stood immediately, panic consuming her face. She knows we're talking? How? She always knows. Lila grabbed the recorder and tapes. Then we leave, right now. No, Nora whispered urgently. If we run, she'll lock everything down. Then we go to the police first. You think local police can touch Claire Voss? The study lights suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Nora gasped. Lila's heart slammed violently against her ribs. Then Claire's voice drifted softly from the doorway. You girls really should stop sneaking around. Lightning flashed through the windows behind her, illuminating Claire's silhouette like something carved from ice. Neither sister spoke. Claire stepped into the room calmly. Her eyes moved first toward the open floor compartment, then toward the tapes in Lila's hands. A long silence followed. Finally, Claire smiled faintly. So Ethan found the old hiding place. Lila stepped backward. You killed him? Claire tilted her head slightly. Such an ugly word. You poisoned him for months. I medicated him. He was healthy before you started. Claire's expression darkened slightly. Your father became unstable long before this family noticed. He was trying to expose you. Claire's gaze shifted toward Nora briefly. Yes, that became unfortunate. Nora looked physically ill now. You promised nobody would die. Claire turned calmly toward her daughter. I promised survival. That's not the same thing. No, Claire agreed softly. It rarely is. Lila held up the recorder. We have everything now. Claire actually laughed quietly. You think tapes matter? They matter enough for you to hide them? For the first time, silence lingered too long. A mistake. Lila saw it instantly. Claire was worried. Not frightened, but worried. Here is another recording, Lila pressed. The final one. Claire's eyes sharpened. Nora began shaking harder. Lila, where is it? Lila demanded. Claire studied both daughters carefully before answering. In my office. The honesty startled them. Then Claire added, because I wanted to hear whether either of you still possessed loyalty. Nora looked devastated. You were testing us? I was protecting us. Lila felt sick. You are insane. No, Claire replied calmly. I am realistic. Families are temporary. Power is not. The statement landed like a death sentence. Everything Claire valued stood exposed in that single sentence: money. Control, survival. Nothing else. Not love, not loyalty, certainly not family. Nora suddenly whispered, I can't do this anymore. Claire's gaze softened slightly. Yes, you can. Number, you are emotional. I helped you kill him. Claire walked closer to Nora slowly. You helped preserve the future. Nora backed away. Tears streamed down her face now. He begged me to stop. Claire's expression remained unchanged. And yet you continued. The cruelty of it shattered something inside Nora completely. Lila saw it happen in real time. Years of manipulation collapsing under one brutal truth. Claire never loved anyone. Not Ethan, not Nora. Not even herself. Only control. Nora's breathing became erratic. You said you loved me. Claire paused, then answered with terrifying honesty. I love what you could become. Nora broke. A sound escaped her throat that barely sounded human before she collapsed sobbing against the desk. Lila moved immediately toward her sister protectively. Claire watched both daughters silently. Then, "You disappoint me." Lila glared at her. "You murdered your husband and destroyed your daughter's mind." Claire's face remained calm. Number weakness destroyed Ethan, and guilt is destroying Nora. "Mom," Nora whispered brokenly, "please stop." Claire looked down at her almost pityingly. "You were always too fragile for this family." The sentence hit harder than any scream could have. Nora stared upward in complete devastation, because even now, even after everything, part of her still needed Claire's approval, and Claire knew it. That was the cruelest part. Claire stepped toward the doorway again. "Give me the tapes, Lila." "Number, you are making a mistake." Lila's voice hardened. "Number, Dad made one." Claire stopped moving. "He thought you were human." Silence. Then Claire's mask finally cracked. Only slightly, but enough. Her eyes darkened with something genuinely dangerous now. "Careful." Lila held her ground. "You are not untouchable anymore." Claire smiled faintly again. "Everyone says that before they lose." Then she left the study, the moment she disappeared. Nora grabbed Lila's arm desperately. "We have to leave tonight." Lila nodded immediately. "The tape first." Nora looked terrified. "You don't understand. If we hear it, everything changes." Lila stared at her. "What does that mean?" Nora began crying again, because she already knew what was on the recording, and somewhere deep down, she feared Lila would never forgive her once she heard it. An hour later, while Claire met privately with attorneys downstairs, the twins slipped into the West Wing office together. Rain battered the windows. Lightning flickered constantly across the dark halls. Nora entered Claire's office like someone approaching a grave. "She keeps it in the wall safe." "You know the code?" Nora hesitated, then nodded slowly. Of course she did. Claire had trusted her once, or pretended to. The safe opened with a soft mechanical click. Inside rested stacks of cash, passports, sealed legal files, blackmail photographs, encrypted drives, and one cassette tape labeled only with a date, the night Ethan died. Lila's hands trembled as she inserted it into the recorder. Static filled the room. Then Ethan's weak voice emerged. "No more tonight, please." Claire's voice answered calmly. "You are becoming difficult again." A glass clinked softly. Then Nora's voice. "Dad, just take it," so she calms down. Lila closed her eyes in horror. Ethan sounded exhausted. "Nora, sweetheart, something's wrong with me." Then Claire again, "Drink." Several seconds passed, then coughing, violent coughing. Nora crying softly in the background. "Mom, maybe we should call someone." Claire's voice sharpened instantly. Quiet. More coughing, then a heavy crash. Ethan hitting the floor. Lila's stomach turned violently. The recording continued. Nora panicking. "Oh my God." Claire terrifyingly calm. "Help me move him." "No. Now." Then Ethan's weak, broken voice one final time. "Nora, why?" Silence followed. Long, horrible silence. Then Nora whispering through tears. "I am sorry." The tape clicked off. Neither sister moved. Neither breathed. The truth sat between them now, complete, unavoidable. And in that moment, Lila realized something even worse than murder had happened inside this family. Claire Voss hadn't simply killed Ethan. She had taught one daughter to help destroy him, and the other to survive the ruins.